All right, so thanks so much for joining this webinar on opportunities for scaling home-based businesses and for successfully supporting kind of cultures of entrepreneurship is actually maybe what the webinar alternate title should have been. Like I said, we're going to be here for about an hour discussing some ways to support home-based businesses. I'm hitting the record button just because I share this with everyone who signed up and as well on our social media afterwards so people could check out this content later. As I know, I have had a few time zone errors happen in the past, and I'm sure they will happen again. So that is just real, and that is part of it. So like I said, my name is Heather with Co-operatives First. Before we get started sort of officially, I'm just going to do a quick land acknowledgement. Even though the event is in a virtual space, as you all realize, the land where I am right now, which is Saskatoon, is Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. So if you've never been to an event with Co-operatives First before, I just like to welcome you here. I'm grateful that you're here. I have to say this, like I would like to kind of acknowledge sort of the gratitude of being able to just sort of sit here and talk about ideas. Like that is a position to be in that I think we're all lucky. I feel lucky to be able to host these conversations. These to-do lists are something that are always going to be on our plate and they will never end. But sometimes it's good to just take a little bit of break from that doing, and just receive some new information, a little bit of inspiration and some connection as well. So like I said, put your name in the chat and where you're joining from, and let's make some of those connections too. So I'm grateful for you to let that to-do list have a little rest and to get some inspiration from this group today. So, I do this every time. I do a giveaway and then I forget to bring the merch to show you what the giveaway is. So I forgot. It is my Hometown Advantage branded. I've got like a trucker hat and a Yeti mug. I don't have it with me. You just have to imagine it. I just will. Next time I'll remember it, I promise. But I'm going to do a draw after this, and one lucky winner is going to receive one of those in the mail. So this time of year it might be slow, but yeah, we'll just draw afterwards and send you an email if that was you. So here's what to expect on our sort of webinar today is we're going to have each speaker give us a little bit of a presentation about their how they're supporting home-based businesses. And then we're going to move into a panel discussion where I'm going to ask questions and we're a bit more freeform back and forth. And then we're going to have discussion time. There's kind of a few ways we can work this. If we have lots of questions or people ask you in the crowd, we can just stay in this room and to do a Q&A. If we're kind of like, okay, we don't have any major questions, but we want to dive into this a little bit more, then I'll put us in breakout rooms and I pose a question and then you just discuss that question in your breakout room. I'll try to balance it, but I'm going to randomize them. I randomized some people and they were like, yeah, we're from the same, like we're literally across the divider from each other. We're in the same office. I don't know how that happened, but I'm like, I can't diversify by location, unfortunately. So my tech isn't that smart. So I hope I don't get the person who works just actually right beside you, but no promises. Okay, so like I may have mentioned before, we're talking about opportunities for scaling home-based businesses. And I think why I wanted to focus on this is because it's sort of this potential untapped area where people are creating and doing economic activity that you can capture and hopefully make that part of the picture of your town's sort of economic growth. And so this can be something like, this can be really anything, like somebody who makes earrings or sews things or woodworking, baking. I mean, it could be anything. And it's often kind of out of the, kitchen table or whatnot. But we're sort of talking about how to get people sort of like off the kitchen table. Maybe that's still where they make the stuff, but like in a market supported by other entrepreneurs, like a little bit closer to help them scale up a little bit more. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. So the presentation, we're each going to do a short presentation on each initiative here. So I'm going to bring, Sean, are you okay with going first? I'm just going to pin both of us. You got to come back, sorry. Okay, surprise.
Battling the cold here, so.
I know, yeah, just forewarning. Okay, I'm just going to introduce Sean really quickly. So
Thank you.
Sean is manager of entrepreneurship initiatives with Louis Riel Capital Corporation. So they provide loans, business development support, and coaching to Manitoba Métis individuals and businesses. So Sean supports small home-based businesses getting started with small business initiatives. So this is just his most recent experience. So he also has a wealth of experience working with government and supporting entrepreneurs. So I just want you to give me a little bit of background on your work supporting small and home-based businesses. So take it away and I will disappear.
Sounds good. Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity. Great to be here. I'm sorry I'm a little verklempt. I've got a cold for the first time in 4 years, which Marley said I should stop complaining, but I'm a Viking. I'm not used to being sick, but well, you got me at probably 50%, which hopefully be good enough. So as Heather said, I've got a background in economic development, supporting businesses, mostly small business, all in the province of Manitoba. Worked for the province of Manitoba, the provincial government for 12 years, and then I came to Louis Riel Capital Corp in 2015, and in 2020 we launched something called the Métis Entrepreneurship Initiative, mainly at the behest of the president, who's the head of the Manitoba Métis Federation. And just for a little bit of background or context, Louis Riel Capital Corp is an affiliate of the Manitoba Métis Federation, so we operate somewhat independently. We would be more or less their business development bank within the government of the Métis in Manitoba, because they've just been given self-government status within probably the last 12 months. So in October of 2020, we launched a small business initiative to support small home-based businesses, commercial as well, but the cap was 25,000, and the whole inspiration behind that was our regular commercial loan program and our regular grant program, which is a reimbursement based on purchases made to get a business up and running, puts more equity in the hands of the client, makes it easier for them to secure commercial financing. Those programs have been around for many, many years. They're doing quite well, but we weren't doing enough for small businesses, and there was a lot of interest in supporting traditional economies such as fishing, trapping, and hunting, and crafters and artisans. And our regular commercial loan program was just not conducive to that. So October 2020, we launched 3 loan programs specific to youth entrepreneurs. So under 30, 18 to 30 years old, 30 is the cutoff, small home base, which could be part-time, full-time, or casual, and smaller commercial fishers, basically winter fishers. So one season, they can do that with a bombardier and a snowmobile. And then we brought trappers in recently. So that is been my focus. I changed my role from commercial finance manager to creating and running these new initiatives. And I got to tell you, it's way more fun, and it is definitely brings you back to why we support entrepreneurship. Not to say that $500,000 loans, because it's great making money off those, but not to say that those are more important. There's just a different kind of work than it is building someone up from square one. So that's me.
Totally. Thanks so much for that. I'm going to bring, and then we're just going to do the little switcheroo here on the screen. And Sean, I'll bring you back as soon as the panel is up and running. And then Marley, I got to find you. Okay. What happened? Oh, there you are. You're the first square. Okay. All right. That's cool. All right. Okay. Sounds good. Marley, I've got you up here. Marley is, okay, so whenever I'm looking for speakers for webinars, I kind of like hear things. And Marley has just been one of those people who just like, she was like, and Sean too, like, well, it was really, I'm so glad I met you both, because you were just both like, yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll do it. That's great. That sounds good. And that's what I like to hear from people who I asked to be speakers. But I asked a couple of coworkers, like, you kind of hear about any sort of like entrepreneurship support initiatives that really stand out. And somebody mentioned something in Grand Prairie. I was like, cool. So I just reached out to Community Futures in Grand Prairie, and they're like, yeah, we do things. And then originally we were, we thought the general manager was, and then she's like, oh, actually I'm on a holiday, so Marley can, and then I was like, oh dear, like poor Marley's getting thrown in at the deep end here, but you have been so gracious and with doing that and being responsive to that, and also just bringing your expertise to this topic. So I just wanted to introduce you really quickly. So Marley's a business advisor with Community Futures Grand Prairie and region. So she's supporting entrepreneurs launching their business and passionate about helping people see themselves as entrepreneurs and see themselves in that light by this definition, and small business owners. And we talked about that in our prep call about the realizing, or that moment where you can kind of help people realize that they are really an entrepreneur. So Marley has a background in sales, and I just read about you that you used to be a ranch hand in Australia. So that's pretty cool. Probably wishing for Australia at this time of year in terms of the being outside thing. So I just take a few minutes to tell us about the initiatives of CF Grand Prairie and supporting home-based businesses. So take it away.
Good. Okay, so a little bit, I guess my background is in sales and customer service, as well as, being a ranch hand and other things that were just kind of happened along the way that I've realized really connect me and make me understand entrepreneurship in a different way. So what we do in Community Futures is I help people create business plans, understand cash flow projections. We create all kinds of different workshops based on what clients are needing. So sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's HR help. And Community Futures, I can see there's a couple other people here from Community Futures too, but I know in our region, we're really the dot connectors. We're not necessarily the experts. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, but we connect you with the important people you need to grow and be successful in your business. A lot of people come to us, and I would say, especially like the home-based businesses, they come to us because they've got a product and their friends have told them it's great and they think that they want to sell more of it, but they never necessarily see themselves as an entrepreneur or a business owner. And so it's kind of us hearing their struggles and just letting them know that, yes, that's what you're doing, and uplifting them and being a place for them to make sure that they're on the right track. Usually they are, and they just need that reassurance that they've checked all the boxes, or they need a little bit of coaching and guidance with that. So I would say that's the biggest portion of what we do and what I do. And then on top of that, we do loan financing as well. So it's, I would say the smallest loan is $1,000 to $150,000 is the max loan that we do. And we just try to help people scale up and elevate without making big mistakes, like maybe jumping into commercial overhead costs that they're not ready for yet, or things like that. And then on top of that, so last year was the first year that I ran a program called Smart Start. And so I get to run that program again, and it's for entrepreneurs in their first 3 years of business. And I kind of schedule program speakers, so professionals to come in and talk to them about some of the key components, like a lawyer, an accountant, and marketing experts. And then they get paired with a mentor, which was kind of the biggest part of the component of the program. Is they get that mentorship piece, which I think is really important for entrepreneurs and people starting up in business.
All right, thanks, Marley. I'm going to just add me and Sean back into the mix here. Okay, so what I want to do now is take us a little bit towards a discussion. And I always think that when it comes to panel discussions and asking questions, it's important to just unburden yourself from the question when it comes to you, so it doesn't have to stay in your working memory, because space is a premium in my working memory. So there's a lot of competition in there. So get out your question in the chat as soon as you think of it. And if it's something we can answer here, we will, or if it's something that it's like more specific and we need to answer later, we can do that too. I believe we're all available for email afterwards. Okay, so the first question I want to ask in the sort of panel discussion part is, I always like to answer. I know that everybody comes to this from the perspective, and I do too, as cooperatives first, I come to as an organizational perspective and interest in this, but I just wanted to ask about like your personal motivations behind it. Sean, you kind of spoke to this, but so why do you see it as valuable to support home-based businesses? Like, why does that feel like, like a good thing to do, or that an organization should be doing? I don't know, Marley, you want to start us off on that one?
Yeah, I can start. Honestly, the funnest part of it for me, and what really fills my cup, is that I find entrepreneurs that are in a home-based business or like in that startup phase are so passionate and genuine. And that is really, it's so nice to work with clients who really want to make it happen and are appreciative of any kind of feedback or help that they can get. And they're highly motivated. So I think that for me, they make the best business owners. When you start up from the ground and you've got all your eggs in a basket and you're taking that personal risk, and you're creating something that you're passionate about, that you love to do, you're motivated, and you make a way more resilient business owner. And therefore, when you think bigger scale of all the different businesses are out there, you're going to have a stronger base of businesses that are supporting each other and there for the community, because they remember who's helped build them up. And so I just think it means a stronger community in general.
All right, thanks, Sean. What do you think your personal reasons?
I'm going to agree a lot with what Marley said. Entrepreneurs are dynamic people. They're way more fun to work with. When I think back to my experience as a bureaucrat working with civil servants, there were some good ones, but there's not a lot of out of the box thinking, which is why I finally left. So yeah, I mean, Marley nailed it. The innovation, the tenacity, and the pride and the passion that self-employed business owners have, whether it be a small home-based business, which, as we talked about in our pre-discussion, Marley and Heather and myself, there was more of a stigma prior to COVID, and how much our world changed during related shutdowns and everything else. Obviously we had to all of us had to adapt, and what I've found is there's people that would have never considered home-based businesses prior to that, but now it's almost a new way of doing things. It's a new normal, muscle memory. But entrepreneurs are still entrepreneurs, and the nice thing about home-based business, because excuse me, in all my years of working with businesses, business launches, probably not more than 10%, to be generous, 6-7% were home-based businesses, and now it's something that's all kinds of people are considering. It's kind of like learning to walk before you start running, which sounds pretty cheesy, and it's not like I came up with an innovative statement there, but truly being able to start off as a small home-based business with very low risk and reward not necessarily being in dollars and revenues, but reward being success, I think is absolutely huge. And I think it's only going to get us further ahead as a society, and as a business class, whether we be in Grand Prairie, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, or the United States. I think it's critical that there's more entrepreneurs. And I think this whole appreciation for working from home or running a business from home is only going to make us a more innovative people, all in all. That's pretty optimistic, but why not?
Oh, we'll go for that. Yeah, we'll own that statement. The thing I think about home-based businesses too is that the bringing people out of those pockets, like this is going to be the people who are sort of on the leading edge, even, I think like you said, like home-based business maybe had a stigma when it comes to like, oh, it's just something you're doing out of your kitchen, it's not like a real business or whatever. And maybe that's why people don't think of themselves as like real entrepreneurs. But these are potential economic drivers. And if you have if you match up the sort of economic impact or whatever this sort of small but mighty group of people are creating, and match that up with something like an empty space in your town, then okay, now we're starting to come up with something that can really be gold here. So I wanted to move a little bit more to talking about sort of this business around, and I guess maybe scale up is kind of, it's like a buzzword that's like kind of loses its meaning after a while, because that's just like go big, go, do big, be bigger. Like it's like, okay, we're talking about small, and then we're just telling them they should be bigger. Like what? But I think what it is just achieving some level of scale, whether that means getting to their customers, getting support from other businesses, getting to a place where they can sell their products out of a storefront, getting a loan so they can buy a very small loan so they can buy the thing that they need to make their product. So these are, when we're talking scale, I mean, scale is kind of relative. So it's just some level of growth. So let's talk about that. And a little bit more about achieving those kind of small levels of growth. And I think also I wanted this question to talk about this kind of like how we can create networks and supports for creating a culture of entrepreneurship in every town. I guess that's the goal. So how do we kind of provide those small opportunities for people to make those steps they can take to grow? So Marley, you want to talk a little bit about that in sort of Grand Prairie context?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, I'm born and raised in Grand Prairie. I did leave a little bit for school and for other little adventuring, but for the most part, as far as the economic development and how the culture of our community is, I haven't got to experience that much from other communities. So it is, I guess one of the I'm finding out a unique thing about our area is that, especially the Downtown Association, there was a period of time where it kind of experienced like this deadfall, like nobody was going downtown anymore. New shops were happening in other places, and there was this mall. Like the downtown was not really a place you went to shop. And in the last, I would say 10 years, that has built up so tremendously, and that's because of the partnerships and the collaborations that have happened in our area. So the farmers market is close to downtown, and that has like boomed. The farmers market is kind of the first place that entrepreneurs are now starting to go, and it's because one, it's a collaborative space where you're meeting with other people who are in the same kind of the growth stage of their business, or they're making things and they're passionate and they're finding ways that they can support each other. And they've definitely created this like peer net, like this supported network that's helped them grow. And a lot of them start at the farmers market and then move other places. Some collaborate and build businesses together, and some just kind of partner on things like doing a flowers and chocolate baskets or whatever, like just for something. And then the downtown has really kind of grown and supported that as well, because so we've got two places downtown on top of the businesses supporting each other, and like that means they financially support each other, but also the Downtown Association does gift cards to help drive more businesses downtown. But there's two places called the Glow Collective and the Makers Market. So the Makers Market kind of was kind of the same idea as the farmers market, but it's another collaborative space right downtown that's open during the week, same as regular businesses, not just on the weekends. And different makers bring their products there and sell them there. And they kind of have a collaborative way of going and somebody always being there and selling. And so that has been really unique and cool. And then the Glow Collective is a business where they again have, but it's like a bigger shop, and they bring in different products, of wider variety of products, not necessarily crafty kind of products, but like soaps and artisan things like that. So it's been interesting to see that collaborative.
Thanks, Marley. I was really, and maybe I was the one saying like that, not everyone has that culture of, like a business just saying like, yeah, you can have a corner of my space, and definitely some have, but I think like this is the kind of small incremental sort of moves that I think are really important in sort of creating and supporting entrepreneurs, is that, yeah, you can have a corner of my shop, or like, sure, why not? Like, I'll support you, because those are the ones that get some traction in a safe space and then can grow and flourish, or they can just operate in that context, at the market or whatever. So
yeah, and I mean, sorry, just to add to that, like, even the other shops in Grand Prairie, you go there and you'll see products that it's not a product they would have ever make, or so it's not in competition, it's just adding, and it's driving more clients to their space because they're coming for chocolate and now flowers, or things that are on their shelves. It's not really any detriment to them, but it's also help supporting a business that's in their area. So
yeah, that's a real customer-centric perspective to take too. Like, what might this customer be looking for? The person who's shopping, this is like the I forgot Valentine's starter pack or whatever, you know what I mean? Like this is like, you're thinking from the perspective of the client walking in and saying like, okay, this, here's somebody who needs, or like me, I need something for my mother-in-law on Mother's Day or whatever, just thinking from like how people experience like shopping what they need and bundling those things together, and resourcing that from what you already have, because people are short on time and just like, oh, if it's there, I'll take it. Okay, so Sean, talk a little bit more about this, about the culture of entrepreneurship thing that you talked about, and a little bit different perspective here, coming from a bigger place, Winnipeg, I guess, but just even your previous experience through, working as a bureaucrat and whatnot, and that supporting entrepreneurs and sort of encouraging more people to be entrepreneurial thinkers and entrepreneurs. Just expand on that a little bit if you can.
So I like how Marley talked about collaboration and grassroots. Just some context for those outside of Manitoba. Winnipeg is about 800,000. The entire population of Manitoba is over 1.3 million. So obviously, there's a lot of population centered in the South Central region. It's probably only about an hour and a half from the U.S. border. So there's a lot of there's a huge sucking sound as Winnipeg, the capital city, brings in a lot from the surrounding areas, which is good and bad. And I'm from Winnipeg, so around here we call those of us from the cityites or city people. I refer to myself as a city boy, but I've spent probably 20 years out in rural Manitoba, and rural Manitoba wouldn't be any different than rural Saskatchewan and rural Alberta, because we're all in the prairies. There's a lot of similar economic drivers. And the theme that I always appreciated being in small towns, in rural areas, is adaptability and not just accepting what the status quo was. So if you don't have enough kids for a hockey team in your community, then you don't think twice. You go down the road, and then you guys combine, and next thing you know, you have a hockey team. Same thing with business. There's larger scale collectives like hemp producers. But as Marley talked about, some of the smaller initiatives where businesses collaborate and instead of competing. And that's one thing I've noticed the last probably 5 years is the 20-somethings, whatever that generation's called, a lot younger than me. I love at least this is what I see in my backyard, that being Winnipeg and Manitoba, is pretty consistently across the board, these entrepreneurs in their 20s look to their network and their community, that being entrepreneurs, self-employed business people, as trying to support each other and help each other, which is amazing. And that's happening, somewhat organically. But thinking back to when I was with the province, there were a lot of things that got talked about and initiatives that never got off the ground because there just wasn't the leadership. So leadership, in my opinion, is key, not necessarily to create the entire framework, but either you need a certain level of government. So going back to my current workplace, the Manitoba Métis Federation, which eventually will be the self-government for the Manitoba Métis people. They got an idea. They gave me the ball. I ran with it. I tried to do this when I was with the province, but the province being a much bigger entity, it was harder to get initiatives off the ground. And that's what I saw back in my first days of being in small communities. They had a problem, they identified it, and they fixed it. They got all of the leaders together, which could be business, could be education, could be cultural, whatever. But they got all of the movers and shakers together. And I could sit here for the next 3 hours telling you about amazing stories of how they solved little problems or how they solved big problems. But it was about collaboration. But without collaboration, without leadership, sometimes collaboration didn't happen, or happened a lot more clumsy because people didn't know, where the right people were to support these initiatives. So on a small scale, getting together for a Valentine's Day, marketing scheme is great. And then on a larger scale, the community looks around and says, all of our young people are leaving. We've got all these empty storefronts. How do we make this conducive to small business and bring more young people back? Without leadership to spur that collaboration, it's hard for these things to occur. But leadership doesn't have to be, at the very top, the highest level of government. or the richest person in town. Just someone saying, let's identify a problem, let's solve it. And a lot of the times, it's entrepreneurs that are going to be crucial to that initiative and that solution.
You know, when we first we talked, Sean, we're getting real here for a second. You were like, this co-op thing is a little skeptical. Back in the day, it seemed so. But what you're saying there is like the essence of cooperatives, which is a group of people solving problems for themselves to create the services
I know,
that they need.
I've
That's exactly,
yeah.
Okay. No, and I
slow
always
convert.
It's okay. You can, whatever, we'll take it. I'll take anything. And, I feel like that's also my perspective on the whole thing. So thank you for reinforcing that, because it's like solving some of these challenges that are, presenting these opportunities. This is what kind of can drive some of this, some of these things that are unique opportunities, I guess, or small rural communities or whatnot. So anyway, just thanks for that. Thanks for saying that. And your authentic journey into that experience.
And with that too, like Sean said, leaders, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, some people don't see themselves as a leader, but if you're a doer, right? And that driving force, right? So yeah.
It just has to be somebody who sees things that other people don't. I mean, I don't know if that's like visionaries or whatever, like this is certain people, and they wouldn't even characterize themselves that way, but I don't know, there's just some people out there, and you probably know them when you see them. It's just like they have the ability to see a future that other people haven't realized. So I think that applies to every topic, and it applies to small and home-based businesses, and that, or even like businesses creating kind of collective marketing efforts. I mean, that's essentially what a farmer's market is, right? Like a lot of farmers markets are cooperatives, or, and you kind of know my angle on this, but I think we do, it's about that collective effort on the supporting and scaling up and bringing people into those spaces and whatnot. So, okay, I want to talk a little bit now. I want to move kind of a little bit more pragmatic, maybe direction, although I've been pretty down to earth. We're a down to earth group here, but I want to move into the something that Sean, you kind of queued me up nicely for, which was what supports do small home-based businesses need to get up and running? So I want to talk kind of practically. I mean, we can drive this back as far as we want here. Like we were talking about leadership, or we're talking even about clarity and what funding is available. I mean, we can talk about like, a lot of different things, or supports for them. We can talk about concrete supports. Businesses need to support other business, however you want to take that. I mean, in your experience working with, or even if it's just changing the culture around entrepreneurship to have, people around the kitchen table who are making something think of themselves as entrepreneurs. Like there's a lot of ways that we can approach this. So how would you say, like, what are the kinds of supports that people need when they're sort of starting, and to get those people sort of like scaling up a little bit? So Marley, you want to take that one first?
Okay. So I think that peer support and mentorship is the biggest piece to that. You don't have to be in the exact same industry as somebody else to understand business and the ebbs and flows. Like, I think businesses kind of do this cyclical thing, and you start seeing those same flows after helping people over and over and over again. And so I guess that's where I actually had my uncle. He's an old farmer, and he asked me, well, you've never ran a business. How are you helping people know what to run a business, And I said, yeah, you're right. But I listen to people. I ask them questions, and it's not my job to tell them the answer because I don't know your business. So it's, you're an entrepreneur and you're a great thinker. Sometimes they just get in their own head. So peer support, mentorship, coaching, I think all those things are really beneficial. And then I think a business plan and understanding like the number side of it really help even just flush out the ideas that entrepreneurs have in their head, so that they are stronger and they know they have validation and they understand all the technical stuff in the background. And I think it's just like validating everything that they know and helping them get that out on paper, and just be more confident. So confidence.
Great. Sounds good. Sean, what do you think in terms of like sort of those concrete supports that home-based businesses need to get that scale going?
I totally agree with what Marley said about in terms of building confidence and just having support. Um, they're Canada is very familiar with the social safety net. It's been around a long time. Um, there needs to be a safety net for entrepreneurs. And prior to this initiative that we launched in 2020, we didn't have enough of that in place, mainly because of capacity. We just didn't have the staff to do a lot of support on the pre-launch and then post. So that changed when this new initiative got launched. So I spent a great deal of time coaching, mentoring, and I actually consider it a success. You can tell we're not purely profit driven. That might change things if that was the motivation, but um, I would put as much merit in talking someone out of starting a business as opposed to someone starting a business if they're not ready or it's just not the right time. And you need to have time to have those conversations. They also, I can't say it enough, and Marley said it, and I'm sure everyone else would agree that it's in the business service world. Time that entrepreneurs can spend, or budding entrepreneurs, with people that have actually, as you said earlier, Heather, there's platitudes and sayings that get used too much, but if you've been there and done that, I'm a longtime coach, big sports guy. Love coaching kids. Love seeing them start from the when they can't skate or can't kick a soccer ball or throw a baseball to getting drafted in leagues. Not that I've sent anyone that far, but there's that whole notion of I know I want to start a business, and if a grumpy farmer uncle says, "Well, what do you know about business?" You don't necessarily have to run a business to be able to point people to the building blocks, but the time I've spent with entrepreneurs is way more valuable, especially those that have been in the business world 20 years or more. And I've never met one yet that hasn't wanted to share their experience because they're talking about their passion. They're also talking about their life's work. And it's a validation, right? So those opportunities when you can put potential entrepreneurs or fledgling entrepreneurs with people that are experienced is amazing. And I mean that experience, that wisdom is golden. Programs are great. And I have noticed, and actually I had to force myself to write this down. I don't want to get too technical, but having programs that have a little more forgiveness is also huge. So this initiative that we've launched, there's fixed rates, there's a 25% forgivable portion. That's all well and good, but if it wasn't for the mentoring and the coaching, I don't think we'd see as much quality as what we've been able to produce because of the combination of preferential lending and at the same time the coaching. I would say the coaching is more valuable than the lending, but it's that whole you got to walk before you run kind of thing.
That makes a lot of sense. I think sometimes with the businesses that we help start up, the real connections start happening when the business planning support consultant or somebody to guide them through the process certainly helps, because I find it it eliminates, like, it's kind of like blinders, like, for a horse, it's like they see everything, they get freaked out. So you just do this and they focus on what they have to do, the next thing they have to do. And that helps them just do that thing and not get totally overwhelmed by whatever else is happening. I don't know. I hope you enjoyed my horse analogy there. Anyway, whatever. But I think it's about that, seeing the next step, but then also where the real connections start to be made is when the group starting a thing starts to connect with another group who's done a similar thing. And they talk shop through, well, this is what we did, and this is where we kind of fell on our faces, and you can maybe avoid that, or you try it if if your situation is different, and that's where people start to get the real kind of understanding of what it takes to start something like this. And that, yeah, it's hard for sure. It's hard work. Like, I don't want to ever downplay that, but it will help them achieve the goals that they want to do if they just keep pursuing this pathway. So certainly would echo that, and I'm glad that came up today. So I wanted to ask the last question for the panel is, okay, so this is a question I like to ask at a lot of these webinars in a different kind of format, but it's kind of about creating, because I think people who are here understand the value of home-based businesses and supporting entrepreneurs in starting small businesses. There is a situation, though, that the rest of people that you talk to and work with every day might not see the potential and real value, untapped value that might exist. for people starting these kinds of home-based businesses, for providing support for them, providing the, networking and the connections and the coaching. This is all work, right? This is all, and work is about choice. It's about the opportunity cost, about what you don't do. So say you're providing coaching support and that kind of thing for home-based businesses and making connections with other businesses, you're not doing something else. So how do you make the case? And I would say, so what are the sort of economic, social, like kind of community impacts that you think supporting home-based businesses brings to your communities? Is it okay if I go with the same order? Marley, okay with going first again? Okay.
I think, well, Sean keeps saying that I'm doing a good job, so I'm okay going first. I think diversity is always a really key economic driver. So sometimes, you have mechanic shops and you have these other things, but I mean, you're always going to have people who are getting out of business. And so you need people who are starting home-based businesses and starting out of their garage and they're ready to move out for when those other businesses stop. And home-based businesses are also innovators. And so they come up with unique, streamlined, quicker processes and cheaper products. And they do it like they just come up with different things that aren't built in a 9-to-5 working for a bigger corporation kind of thinking. I do find a lot of home-based businesses or small entrepreneurs struggle with having their family or other people kind of support them because they think, oh, it's just your side hustle, or yeah, you're crafty. And so those are negative comments that don't help build up your business. But if you talk to other people, you're also going to have those friends and family that are going to support you because they want you to, they do believe in your product. And so you just need to really listen to those people, not the people who are negative, who don't see the other side of it and see your value. And I think flexibility is being innovative, being flexible. So being able to, when COVID hits, home-based businesses shifted gears and really small businesses shifted gears and threw other things in the mix to make them survive and thrive. And there were some big businesses who did not because they didn't have the flexibility to do that. So.
Awesome, thanks.
Good job, Marley. So when I was first started to travel all over the province, northern Manitoba, like lots of northern provinces anyway. Sorry, I always laugh when been at hockey tournaments in Duluth and they talk about how far north Duluth is, and then there's the entire country of Canada above. But anyway, the far north of Canada, you're in the middle of nowhere. And the first few years I was in northern Manitoba, they kept talking about, oh, we're going to get a Tupperware factory in these mining towns that are shutting down. Well, that's not possible and that's not feasible. And there was a few of us who were saying, well, what about supporting small businesses, entrepreneurs? And we got laughed out of the room. And they're still trying to find Tupperware factories for some of these towns. And I know that's not just unique to Manitoba, Canada, or the United States, but there definitely has been a shift, as Marley alluded to. And this sounds really obvious, but I've helped about 4 or 5 home-based hair salons, estheticians, and what's amazing is talking to these business owners afterwards. And I'm smiling as they're telling me this because I already know this because I've spent lots of time in beauty salons and esthetician salons. Now that you can tell by looking at me, but helping these people start these businesses, and especially in small towns. And the risk of sounding sexist, but I'm not, because it's it's open to all. There's a lot of conversations that happen in those places, and what's been amazing is these salon owners are telling me they know more about their town than they ever have, based on their clientele, and that's sort of the hub as far as free flow of information. But those businesses, they bring people into the community, which again, this is not an aha moment, but the more small businesses, the larger your business community is growing. And by virtue, more people are coming into the community. The challenge is there are still far too many people that don't advertise that they're a home-based business, or they don't advertise outside of their target market. And as small as a community can be, I guarantee you can walk in any small community, and if you name all the small businesses, there would be a lot of people that would be shocked. They didn't know that they were there unless they'd used the service or they had a connection with them. So that's a good challenge to have. But I mean, I think that's only a benefit to a community having more entrepreneurs. It's been alluded to earlier by Marley and yourself, Heather. I mean, entrepreneurs are innovators. I mean, the small communities I've been in, the leadership group almost always is 50% small entrepreneurs. I mean, there's a great story in Dauphin, Manitoba, which is home to Country Fest, which is a big music festival. Basically, the driving force behind that was small business owners. One of them, I can't remember the gentleman's last name, but he's a pharmacist. Then they brought a theater, where theaters are dying in larger cities. They've got a fully functional movie theater in Dauphin, which is probably 7,000 or 8,000 people. This is unheard of. I think it was Landmark, whoever came to town, said, well, they laughed at them when they said, we'd like to bring a big theater to town. And it happened. And it happened because these people were tenacious. They didn't take no for an answer, but they were not big enough that, and when I say that, they're still connected to the community. They're connected to all the different groups. And the reason they are is entrepreneurs never forget where they came from, and entrepreneurs never stop reaching out, which is why you can always get them on a panel, and which is why they're never tired of telling their story, just the ones I've seen, because they started out usually very small and they've never forgotten that journey. You see that more in a smaller town. I definitely appreciate that all the time I spend in smaller communities. It's easier to identify those people. And I'll say it again, because they're still there, they haven't forgotten where they came from, and they've never stopped helping people out along the way, at least in my experience.
All right, thanks for that. Yeah, great conversation from Marley and Sean. I really appreciated taking the time, and for those of you who have joined and talked about this topic of home-based businesses. I don't know if I wanted to get into this, but I'm going to say this anyways. Sean, your comment made me think that when we talked earlier about entrepreneurs not seeing themselves as entrepreneurs, I kind of wondered to what extent the home-based business entrepreneurship has a bit of a gendered lens on it, that a lot of women don't see themselves as creating these businesses because they feel like, well, yeah, they make the salon, or like I have spent time in the salon, so or what the beauty salons or whatever, but it's kind of like, it's sort of like a thing where you're just like, oh, I just kind of do the thing, then I make some money, it's my side hustle or whatever, or I make some scarves or whatever, and then there's like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a real entrepreneurship. So anyway, I don't want to get too far into that, because I'm sure I could like go into some diatribe about sort of like a gendered lens of home-based business startups and entrepreneurship, and definitions of am I an entrepreneur or not, but I'll leave that to somebody somewhere else to write an op-ed or an academic paper on that. And I'll just say that this is kind of where we concluding our panel portion. If people have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is, for the last 10 minutes here, I'm just going to put everybody in a breakout session, and we're just going to talk a little bit about, okay, so this is the question is, just wanted to sort of bring out a unique or small home-based business that you have in your community. Something that occurs to you. I mean, at the very least, you can be like a mini marketing panel for this home-based business. And then secondly, I just want to talk about, so like how in your community you're working, or how you can think of ways or small ways that you can kind of help people achieve a little bit more scale, getting that corner of the shop up and running, getting, kind of cultivating the leadership that's necessary, or the culture of entrepreneurship, or what other, connecting people, being that resource to get somebody a mentor, and, in the world of your connection, somebody Okay, so that's like, how can we sort of as a team, how can we start to resource these people more? Okay, so I'm just going to, and you know what, I'm going to just say before we go, I just wanted to thank you again one more time, Marley and Sean, for being on this panel and for being part of this presentation on this webinar, just in case people have to run as we go into our breakout sessions here. I truly appreciate people taking the time and sharing your expertise and experience and ideas with this group. So thank you very much. And now stay tuned for the jump, because there's going to be breakout rooms happening.